I had hitchhiked to Rosslyn to see the World Cup races in 1968, and I was so motivated to be there that I went a week early. And I was working on the courses, and I would come down every day for lunch or around lunchtime to sit on the terrace at the bottom of Rosslyn at Red Mountain and stare up at the mountain. And on this particular day, I pulled in and I stopped. I took my skis off, and I was about to go into the day lodge, and I heard this skier coming down the hill. And I looked up, and it was somebody in a Canadian national team uniform, and they slid to a stop and sprayed snow all over the ski rack. And she got up as she undid her skis and got rid of her skis. She picked up her skis and she threw them against the ski rack and says, "These skis are no good." And then she took her poles and she busted them over her legs and threw her poles down and said, "These poles are no good." She took her goggles and hat off and stepped on the goggles and said, "These goggles are no good." By then, she had an audience. Everybody was paying attention to her. She looked up and she pointed to her chest and said, "Thank God I'm good," and walked in to the day lodge. That was the first time I met Betsy Clifford. And I knew who she was. And I'm stunned. I'm just standing there. This is Betsy Clifford. This is Betsy Clifford. And her desire and ambition to be as good as she could be maybe was a little over the top for most people, and I wouldn't recommend those type of temper tantrums, but that was Betsy. And I stood there, and I could feel the heat. I could feel the intensity. And in this whole series that I'm doing about which is easier, to move a mountain or to move you, this was a mountain mover. Betsy was a mountain mover. And this week, I'm Jungle Jim Hunter, and we're going to talk on 831 Living Your Best Life podcast as we try to inspire participation and communicate precision and empower performers to podium to listen and tell your friends to go to their favorite podcast provider or junglejimhunter.com and subscribe, download, and click on like and rate and review this podcast. Tell your friends who have kids that are into anything. It doesn't have to be into sports, because Betsy was so inspiring. You see, Betsy's on my 831 list because she made such an impact on me that it changed everything in 1 minute. I suddenly stood there going, what does it take to be on the World Cup circuit? What does it take to be in the World Championships? What does it take to be in the Olympics? What kind of character? Yes, that word act. Getting your act together is how you move mountains. How do you get your act together? Betsy's record from Old Chelsea, Quebec was amazing already. And she was younger than I am. She was the same age as I was, but about 6 months, 5 months younger. She came from the Ottawa Ski Club, and she was frank and determined and a strong person. In 1967, she won the Canadian Junior Slalom Championships. In 1968, at 14, she was the youngest member of the Canadian Women's Alpine Ski Team, and she was the youngest skier to compete in the Olympic Games, finishing 23rd in the downhill. She went on to become a gold medalist in the World Championships in Giant Slalom in Val Gardena, Italy, at the age of 16. At that time, she became the youngest female competitor ever to win a World Championship medal. In 1971, she won the World Cup slalom title, the Crystal Globe. She's in Canada's Sports Hall of Fame and the U.S. Hall of Fame and the museum, the Canadian Ski Museum and Hall of Fame. And I stood there and I felt this spine shiver. I call it a spine shiver. It went right up and down my spine. And I shook even as I say it. My spine just tingles here. And I asked myself, what are you going to do, Jim? She's younger than you. You got to get it in gear, buddy. Listen, I want you, the listener, to live your best life. When did you last have a spine shiver? When did something make the hair on the back of your neck stand up? When was the last time that you were doing something and somebody came along and said something to you and it sent a shiver up and down your spine? When you got it, dude, what did you do with it? Did you move the mountain, or did you have your excuses on the tip of your tongue for not starting or not training or not doing it today and saying, I'll do it next week or tomorrow or next year? You got to take action. I want to thank Betsy because that spine shiver was something that I could trust. Every time I felt it, it was something that every time somebody said something or I heard something or I saw something, it moved me to action. And that's how you get your act together. You move it to action. I noted it and did something about it. What can you do today? No matter where you are, do something. How are you communicating when you get a spine shiver? Betsy communicated. She said, I'm good. And I wondered, do I think I'm that good? You bet I did. And you're going to hear in another podcast about what I did next. Betsy shook me so much that I had to move on it. I had to do it today. I had to put it in my growth journal. What are you putting in your growth journal? What are you communicating to yourself when you read your journals? And then you're training. Remember, when you walk, you don't walk in a straight line. When you run, you don't run in a straight line. When you ride a bike, you don't ride in a straight line. When you go on a plane or a boat, you never are on a straight line. You're only crossing it from time to time. But the word train is so important because a train on the train tracks is always on a straight line. It's on the only line it can be on, and it can't get off track. And you need to demand of yourself that you train yourself to make a contract with yourself that you will today do what you got this spine shiver feeling that says, this is what I must do, and keep it. So let me ask you, who's inspiring you today? Who are you inspiring today? Who are you going to give a spine shiver to? Yes, you can do this. What you can do is walk up to somebody and tell them something they do that is great. I want you to do that today. I want you to go do it. See somebody smile and have them so flustered they don't know what to say. And then write me about it and tell me about it. Tell me who you made shiver today. Look them up. Look the people up online that you want to be like. Get a book. My quote for the day, since it's impossible to give more than 100%, your intentional 10, in other words, the 10 effort you're going to give and what you call your 100% must be as close to that as it possibly can be. My personal dare, fight for 1 hour today to take action, to practice what you preach. In other words, I'm going to do this, and then do it. And then to develop a tactic, do one thing that you can turn into a habit. That's to fight for 1 hour every day to grow, to develop. Oh, by the way, Betsy finished 6th at that World Cup Giant Slalom in Rossland. It changed me. And I can't thank Betsy enough. I really appreciate you listening today. I hope you will have grown before we meet next time.